storage areas, just in case. So we have a buffer in case, you know, the demand for oil fluctuates. I'll probably end up putting another one over here. Alright. Time for space news. Man, that game is fun. I forgot how fun it is. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous game. Dark brown. Okay, cool. The Sls article. Alright, there's that. I don't care. There's pictures of trains, there's that, and then there's that. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to switch this over to space news now. Let's start talking about space, baby. Alright, I'll be back in 5. Just going to get a pot of coffee. Not going to eat. We don't need to eat today. We don't need to eat today. You don't need to worry about eating. All right. Okay. Space news. All right. I'll be back in a second. Yeah, I found this footage last night. Thought you guys would appreciate it. It's from Roscosmos. They kind of went a little bananas with the white tiles. This thing has no Nomex on it. I just noticed that a second ago. It's all tiles down the entire thing. The American shuttle isn't built like that. The American shuttle uses Nomex. I wonder how many tiles that orbiter has. Like, I'm looking at it. It's all tiles down the side. See the texture? It's all tiles down the side. We didn't build our shuttles like that. I don't think it was all tiles, Roblox. I'm pretty sure they used Nomex as well. But either way, this footage, pretty nuts, huh? It's cobbled together, though. This footage here, that's rollout of the 1K1 mission. That's the one this is when it flew into space. But the integration footage, I noticed, you're missing some parts. That has no RD-170s installed on it, which is strange. Would make it significantly heavier. Maybe they needed to make it heavier. Yeah, maybe they needed to make it heavier. Who knows? Thing's nuts, dude. The TUA is insane. So, you guys notice that it's in this shot. Look, the thing needs to be really frigging wide because this thing drives over the flame trench. It's a tri-flame trench for Complex 110. This is the Complex 110 pad. Complex 110 is like Launch Complex 39. It's the big one, right? It has a tri-flame trench. There's one going this way, there's one going this way, and then there's one going this way. This thing drives over one of the flame trenches, which is cool. Was the Bren external tank bigger than the shuttle external tank? No. The tanks are about the same size. The difference is that the Energia core stage is built think like SLS. It has 4 Hydrolox RD-0120s at the bottom. Just like SLS has 4 RS-25s at the bottom. Well, not they wanted. They could move more than the shuttle. You don't have to worry about the Buran doesn't carry any Buran doesn't carry upper stage engines. Like it doesn't carry the RD-0120s. I firmly believe to this day that taking the American space shuttle and using the Zenit boosters on the American shuttle would be cool, but that would be really complicated. The Zenit boosters would have to hold the external tank up because it's vertically integrated. So you'd either A, have to horizontally integrate the American space shuttle with the Zenit boosters, or B, you'd need a strengthened core stage. You need the link? Sure. Alright, there you go. Anyway, okay, welcome to Space News. Let's see what we got. Let's take a look. Alright, I think we'll start off with some Starship footage. Let's do that. Actually, you know what? Let's start off with this. You guys will like this. So, actually, before that, here. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I gotta find it. Okay, so this is from the 45th Space Wing. This is for Crew 3. Here. Crew 3 is scheduled to go off this weekend. But it got delayed due to a minor medical issue from one of the astronauts, meaning that one of the astronauts stubbed their toe and they waited a couple of days. They're gonna wait a couple of days for it to heal, right? like, or they got like a paper cut or something. It's something like that. You don't want to go into space with like a open wound or anything, right? Like, obviously. So they rescheduled it. It was supposed to be Tuesday, and that was scrubbed because it was supposed to be on Saturday. And Saturday, the weather in the recovery area was no good. But so we have the launch mission execution forecast coming from Space Delta 45 here. This is for this weekend, and it's not good. I think Buran Energia program certainly had the better approach as far as flexibility goes. Shuttle, SLS and the shuttle in a single design. Shuttle could do it. Shuttle, they freaking made one, dude. They mocked one up. See? They were gonna... I wish. They were gonna make a Shuttle C variant, Tessa. And yeah, it was the same idea as Energia. Similar idea. They never did it. You know why they never did it? They never did it because, you know, NASA did a study into how expensive it would be tossing RS-25s into the ocean, and they deemed it would be too expensive. It's a true story. That's why Shuttle C didn't happen. But anyway, going back over to Crew 3. Time to learn about rockets. What's up, Spiffy? So the launch mission execution forecast from Space Delta 45 is not looking good. We have a 60% POV on launch day. 24-hour scrub is 20% POV, and then a 48-hour scrub would be a 20% POV as well. Note that the additional risk criteria for the ascent corridor recovery and booster recovery weather are pretty bad. So, guys, with this and these right here, I mean, NASA's gonna monitor conditions, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that this probably won't launch this weekend. Crew 3 probably is not. That's not gonna stick. 60% probability violation with bad recovery conditions. Yeah, this is probably not going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if NASA came out probably like today or tomorrow and said that they're not going to do that. Out of all this criteria, the 48-hour delay is the one that's looking correct. So that would be on a Monday, obviously, because why wouldn't it? In which case I'll be here to cover it. So yeah, that's what's going on. Crew 3, 60% probability of violations. You got lower winds, so liftoff winds are no good. Cumulus cloud rule and surface electric field rule. The plain Jane way of saying that, it's going to be windy and lightning. Yeah, cumulus clouds and then surface electric. So surface electric means lightning. Cumulus clouds mean clouds that make lightning. Long story. I mean, cumulus clouds don't necessarily mean that, but anvil cloud rule is what you would be looking for thunderstorms. Cumulus clouds just means it's going to be cloudy. Surface electric field rule. Yeah, that's the really nice way of saying lightning. Yeah, you don't need that hitting the rocket. That would be bad, especially with people on board. See, scattered showers, visibility 5 miles, 64 degrees Fahrenheit, 78% humidity. 20 to 25 mile an hour liftoff winds at 3:30. Yeah, it's going to be partly cloudy with scattered showers. Yeah, typical winter Florida day. So yeah, Crew 3 might not happen this weekend. My guess is that they're not. So this would be. So it's Not Sunday night, but Monday night. Monday night is probably when this is going to end up happening. So if it's Monday night, I definitely will be here for it. That's what I'm going to guess. I'm guessing they're probably not. It's probably not going to be on Sunday. This is good launch conditions, but the ascent corridor recovery is caca. It's going to be windy where the rocket lands, which is what scrubbed the original thing. NASA said, we'll wait till Tuesday, because of this. What's the status of the sick astronaut? Not sick, Moto Kid. Most likely just sunburned or something. Yeah. Yeah, not sick. Just sunburned. Seriously. So, yeah, that's what's going on with Crew 3. We also still should have... it looks like Astra moved out. They were going to launch this week, but it didn't happen. I think I found what EJ will look like in a couple of decades. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Probably. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's see, rain. It's partially cloudy. We do have an Electron one, but yeah, I doubt this is gonna go. And if that one goes, we'll definitely cover it. But yep. Okay, so a little bit of other space news here. I have a Phil Sloss article from NASA Spaceflight here. We can talk about that in a second, but I wanted to show you guys this. Trevor Malman, who's the photographer for ours, right? Took these pictures this afternoon. That is outside of Blue Origin's factory, and that is the new Glenn mock-up. The new Glenn Pathfinder. Yeah, they rolled it out. Now, what is this exactly? Is this a rocket? No, it's not a rocket. It's a mock-up. It's supposed to look like it. This is a mass simulating Pathfinder. What does that mean in plain English? A mass simulating Pathfinder is supposed to basically... It's basically the same size and the same weight as the booster. And it has pickup points in the same place as New Glenn. Long story short, this is something that you use to test out your equipment that you need to move the rocket around with. You use this to test out integration equipment. They did it for SLS. SLS had a Pathfinder. Here. The Space Shuttle had a Pathfinder as well. That's the SLS Pathfinder. It's just basically a big steel tube with the same integration points and umbilical attachment points. Basically mimics the weight and size of the booster and shape. Yeah, so that right here, these pictures, once again, coming from Trevor, that is a new Glenn Pathfinder. We knew it existed, but this is the first time we've seen it out. So, I mean, it's a Pathfinder, but Pathfinders always preclude the real thing. The next thing that you'll see coming out of this factory is the real thing. And those Blue Origin promo videos that showed off the Pathfinder showed that they are manufacturing New Glenn boosters. They've started. So, very cool seeing this thing pop out. The wings. Steerable wings up there. It's got main wings down here. These wings are designed to have the booster fly back, which is crazy. The secret RQ-180 stealth plane. Oh, look at that thing, Admana, huh? Yeah, people probably shouldn't be taking pictures of that. Only 3 upper fins? No, there's definitely pegs for a downward-facing fin right there. I just don't think they have it on there. So it will glide. It won't, like, fly like this. I made a booster that did that one time. Kind of worked. It won't do that, but it will... This will allow it to do a little bit more precise landings. It'll land in a headwind and stuff. So, like, it'll be able to have bigger cross-range capability. So, yeah, pretty awesome, dude. It's pretty big. I mean, look at the people. we talk about SLS, right? You talk about SLS, we talk about Starship, right? But you forget that Blue is just quietly hinting away at this. I mean, New Glenn is not small. Like, it's not a small vehicle by any means. Here's a promo thing from Blue, right? There it is next to the Saturn V. I mean, Starship would be up here somewhere, but still, this is not a small vehicle. It's a 7-meter diameter vehicle that's going to be about 280 feet tall. SLS is 322, so SLS is somewhere up here. Starship's is a little bit above that. But once again, we're talking about something that's almost as big as a Saturn V first stage coming back down and landing, right? Now, don't get me wrong, Super Heavy, yeah, I get it. Super Heavy is bigger than this, but this is still pretty freaking big. Like, it's not, I'm not trying to make it like, oh, this versus that, right? This isn't like, oh, Blue Origin's first stage versus SpaceX's first stages, right? Like, the fact that we have a 7-meter Super Heavy launch vehicle, an 8.4-meter Super Heavy launch vehicle, and a 9-meter Super Heavy launch vehicle, all of them in the works right now, one of them is really close to launching, is absurd to me. Like, that's pretty frigging good capability right there. That's a lot of capability. That's a very, very unique capability right there. Yeah, Ian, I don't hate it. I really don't. I mean, look at Trevor's pictures, man. Look at that thing. That thing is not small. I mean, in the past, so we started seeing SLS's Pathfinder rear its head probably sometime, I think it was early 2020, if I'm remembering correctly. So, I mean, if Blue Origin and New Glenn are using some type of waterfall testing, right? If they're building similar to NASA here, and let's be real, they're building something that's almost as big as SLS. I'm gonna say that New Glenn is probably gonna come around either late next year or early 2023, judging by the Pathfinder kind of making an appearance and basing it off of SLS's timetables. Which still is a hell of a capability. I'd say sometime in 2023, Smirks, yeah. Yeah, that would be about right. Because, I mean, when did that SLS Pathfinder come around? It was 29, well, if it was 2019, then 2024, yeah. New Glenn payload to low Earth orbit is 5 tons below the super heavy lift definition. I thought super heavy lift was over 50, or is it not? This thing can do like 70, can't it? One has to hope Blue Origin will waterfall at a faster pace than NASA. 45 tons to Leo in reusable capability. Oh, okay, cool. One has to hope Blue Origin will waterfall at a faster pace than NASA. J-Speed, I have a firm belief here that one of the reasons why Jeff Bezos stepped down from Amazon is because he saw that Blue was not struggling, but they weren't going to the speed that he wanted. And so when he decided to do the NS-16 flight, right, he said, all right, cool, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to clean up shop. Like, I've just noticed this. I've noticed this, that after that flight this summer, right? Or last summer, I guess. Blue started to do things. They started releasing promo videos. We started to see, the Pathfinder. They started making all this promo. We've had more updates from Blue Origin in the past 3 months than we had in the past 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, I think he was not happy how it was being ran. But once again, I'm just speculating. I don't know for sure. I don't think he was happy with how, like, the progress that was being made. So he went in there and started saying, hey, let's do this, etc., etc. You know, take that for what you will. I don't think he cleaned shop. I don't think he fired anybody, Spiffy. I think he just went in there and said, look, guys, we gotta get this done. The FCC have approved Boeing's request for a 147 low Earth orbit satellite constellation. So, either way, seeing the Pathfinder out is very cool. My guess is that they're probably going to take that Pathfinder over to the TCAT to test integration with it. But look at that thing, man. It's frigging gigantic. And look, they got 2 huge counterweights down at the bottom where all the engines are going to be. See the big freaking slabs of steel right there? Yeah, that ain't an accident. Cool. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Chonk. All right, so this one's coming from Mike Sheets. What do we got here? The FCC authorizes Boeing's request to build a constellation of 132 broadband satellites. The FCC had approved an application for the Boeing company to license, construct, and deploy and operate a satellite constellation. As detailed in its FCC application, Boeing plans to provide broadband and communication services for residential, commercial, institutional, governmental, and professional users in the United States and globally. Man.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Trojan, 46-month resub. Let's go. Weekend human launch if it all holds. I don't think it's going to hold, dude. Just a thought, though. 60% probability of violation on Saturday, and Sunday is not looking any better. So broadband for the bourgeoisie. No. Yeah, I mean, guys, if that's what you want to focus on, sure. I'm just focusing on how those satellites are going to get up there. What are they going to launch on? Vulcan? Atlas? SpaceX? Maybe. New Glenn? It's possible. SLS? I doubt SLS, no. Can you imagine if they launch on Vulcan? Tory Bruno somehow positioned himself strategically to be able to launch, like... So, Amazon already bought, like, 9 Atlas launches for Project Kuiper. And now Boeing is looking to launch... Oh, man. I mean, I think that Boeing would use ULA. Jeez, dude. Will you be covering this? It sounds pretty cool. Reaper, next time, don't say, will you be covering this? Just say, hey, there's a thing about this, and I'm wondering if you covered. Because will you be covering this takes time, because now I got to go read it. What's this? On Thursday at 1 p.m., get a live preview of the DART mission. Our first test to see if we can change the course of an asteroid. DART will crash into a small asteroid 6.5 million miles from Earth and measure the effect on its motion. Maybe, I don't know. 150 sats, you get any decent kind of coverage, they need to be pretty high up, so latency will be a thing. If I was Boeing, what I would do is not even bother trying to do a LEO sat constellation because of all the Starlink satellites, Tessa. I'd aim for MEO, medium Earth. 150 satellites makes sense for medium Earth orbit, not low Earth orbit. And that you don't need to worry about fighting with other companies. Well, ABL got a big contract the other day, Vex. Screw it, LLL Constellation, yeah. ABL Space Systems actually got manifested to launch satellites for Amazon. Yeah. Big contract from them the other day, which is interesting. Yeah, they got a huge chunker of a contract here. And they've never tweeted anything else. Okay. Good to know. Thanks, guys. Great Twitter account. And Well, they'd suck for latency. They'd be great on things for streaming services on, say, like 787s. Tesla, Boeing's a lot of things, but they ain't stupid. All right? Like, I don't think anybody ever complained that the people that have Boeing, that do Boeing's, like, strategy, like, are idiots. No. It's always, the big thing that I've heard with Boeing is that there's too much middle management. There's too many morons. There's too many chefs in the kitchen. Too many people think that they know what they're talking about. There's too much middle management. So these good ideas that they have never get executed correctly. Dish is like, well, I would beg to differ. I would ask why, but I'm not going to ask why. He's a moron, sir. Anyway, let's go see what this Sls article is about SLS. Let's see what we got. So this one's coming from NASA Spaceflight. It's coming from our buddies over there. And this one is written by Phil Sls. Let's see. Let's get into this Phil Sls epic, as Chris G so succinctly puts it. When flight hardware and ground systems are finally ready for the inaugural Artemis 1 launch to the moon, NASA will also have to synchronize the timing of the flight with unique celestial mechanics. Oh, yeah, you got a launch window for this one. A very, very strict launch window. You don't want to launch and have the moon not be there. Yeah, that's important. You kind of need the moon to be where you're going. The Orion and the Space Launch System programs in the Exploration Systems Development Division are working together to calculate when the Earth, Moon, and sometimes the Sun are all in the right positions to support the agency's requirements for the first joint Orion SLS test flight. In general, NASA will have daily opportunities to launch this first Artemis mission to the moon in approximately 2 weeks on, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off pattern. Yep. Yeah, because lunar day, you don't want to land at night. It's really cold on the moon, amongst other things.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Odin, 26-month resub. On a particular day that has a launch opportunity, EGS, Orion, and SLS will have a launch window that will vary from a few minutes to a few hours. Launch opportunity factors. The Artemis 1 mission to the moon has had a long history of planning. Formerly called Exploration Mission 1, this combined test flight of 3 programs in the Exploration Systems Development plan to send an uncrewed Orion spacecraft on a cislunar DRO trajectory, distant retrograde orbit. Now rebranded it as Artemis 1, the mission will see the EGS program launch Orion on top of the first SLS vehicle from the Kennedy Space Center. SLS will place Orion on a lunar transfer trajectory that will pass within approximately 100 kilometers of the lunar surface. From there, Orion will begin a series of powered flybys and insertion burns to place itself into cislunar distant retrograde orbit. This type of orbit was a strong candidate for an asteroid redirect mission, which was proposed under the Obama administration. NASA is now planning on staging its orbital cislunar infrastructure in a near rectilinear halo orbit. On future lunar landing missions, Orion and its crew will rendezvous with SpaceX's lunar lander variant of Starship or the Lunar Gateway, both of which are in active development. Although it's an artifact going back several generations of space policy, the distant retrograde orbit mission provides a setting to accomplish dozens of flight test objectives and systems checkouts on this first solo Orion mission. This flight to a distant retrograde orbit has its own set of launch constraints. There's just a handful of key drivers that we use to determine whether or not there is a launch opportunity on a given day. The further you get into the manifest, the constraints will change because we need to account for things like lighting for lunar landing and docking, and some other things. And so I'm just going to speak about Artemis 1. I would expect some of these to be in play for later missions, but there actually may be additional constraints. For Artemis 1, the opportunities tend to repeat about once every 2 weeks, with a launch period of about 10 to 15 consecutive days. This is then followed by about 2 consecutive weeks without a daily launch window before the next period begins. Moon's got to be in the right spot, guys. That's important. Okay. We're specifically trying to hit our translunar injection point, and there are days when the Earth-Moon alignment do not support launching the ICPS or the Block 1 vehicle, so the performance is the #1 constraint. Oh, geez, you're limited by upper stage performance in a vehicle that has a underperforming upper stage on it. Jeez. There's a surprise. Wah, 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 wah. All right, anyway. There's your phasing windows here. The reason why I said that SLS, they did move it a little bit because they had a little bit of weird stuff with the modal and umbilical testing, right? And I learned that from a Phil Sloss article, right? That they're probably going to target late February. That's my guess. February 12th. They could be ready by January, but by the time they're ready for January, the window, they'll be in the gray area. I think they'd be ready by the end of January, but then they have to wait 2 weeks anyway. So, guys, another important thing to understand is delays at this point is not that big of a deal. You're not going to get a ridiculous delay right now. Think about it like this. With Artemis 1, they're still writing the manual for how to put SLS together. They're still writing it. They had to write the manual for how you put it together. That's why Artemis 1 took so long to put together and why it took so long to kind of come together, right? Because they had to rewrite the manual. They had to look at the old shuttle manuals and say, okay, well, this is different. We got to flip this around. And they had to basically write a new manual for assembly, a new way to do it, because it's a new rocket, right? You can't just say, oh, well, we'll put it together like this. Because in real life, when you say, oh, we're going to put it together this way, when you go to actually do it, you're going to get a curveball. You're going to get something you didn't predict. That's why they go slow. So they can sit there and attach and detach things and figure out the best way to do it. They're optimizing it kind of as they go. So this does take a second, I'm an auto mechanic and I understand it like this. They're literally writing the service manuals. Pretty much. If they go slow now and they optimize it, if they optimize it right now, they can go fast later. Exactly, XPZ. You got it, dude. You got it. So, we got a full stack. There's a full stack. It's probably going to get delayed again. It might even get delayed till March. But honestly, the delays right now, not that bad. I'd say at this point, and I might eat my words on this, I'd say at this point it's very unlikely that you're going to see any more than maybe a month delay. Unless they find something really wrong with the rocket. It's just dotting the T's and crossing the I's. You know what I mean? As an engineer, I know you need tech manuals to address any issues that come up. Yep. So, it's... These delays that are coming up now are they're just finishing up some final things here and there. And then, best case scenario, we get a really good Artemis 1 mission. Crossing the I's. Yeah, it was a joke. Yeah. So, my gut's telling me probably February. That gives them enough slack. Probably February, if something really bad happens, March or even April. But I really don't see it going any further than that. Had they not had problems with the forward skirt umbilical, had they not had problems with it, and don't get me wrong, they had problems, but they needed to prove out the problems, and they needed to prove that it was actually a problem. They had an umbilical at the launch umbilical testing facility, right? And for the core stage, and they tested its separation mechanism, and it broke, right? And they said, oh, okay, well, that's not good. And then when they did the umbilical test on the actual SLS a couple of weeks ago, it also broke. Now, I know people are going to look at that and say, why did they test it if they knew it was going to break? Well, how do you know it was going to break? Remember, in order to validate engineering, right? If you're going to use scientific method, you have to use it's a little variation on the scientific method. You're not looking for a difference between control and your experiment, right? If the umbilical broke on the launch umbilical test facility, and then a carbon copy of it on the mobile launcher did the same damn thing, that's actually a good thing. That's actually a good thing because that proves that it will happen every time. So you know exactly what you need to fix. See what I'm talking about there? Like, but that's one of those things that's unknown unknowns. This is what I mean about taking your time. Like, that's why they're taking their time, because look, you know, if they went and fired it off and the umbilical malfunctioned and it broke and say it like fell off or something, like that would really suck. Especially if it hit the rocket. That would be a really bad day. Just had a thought. Do Orion and Starliner share a supplier on the RCS valves? Unlikely. Or as a scientist would say, 3 times the trend. Well, that would be 3 times the trend, Signer, because that means they did the math when they designed the thing, right? And the math and the real one correlate, and then the real one at the test facility, and then the real one on the umbilical. That's a trend right there. They're all exactly the same, and they all failed. Well, the math didn't fail, but the 2 others failed. There's your trend. If I recall correctly, the reason that happened is because at the time of disconnection during launch, the vehicle would be higher than during the ground test, resulting in a different angle of disconnect. Make sense? But the fact that they were able to replicate that at the LETF, Novus, and then replicate it on the ML as well, yeah, there you go. I mean, they're going to have to go in and fix some of those parts, but yeah, that makes sense. So you're telling me that wouldn't happen during launch. Yeah, see. Well, hey, that's stuff to figure out, man. It's good. That it's always small, stupid stuff like that pays. It pays to figure that stuff out now. You don't want to find that stuff out later. That would be very bad. Question for Americans in chat. Is it normal to be able to take 2 to 4 weeks paid holiday annually, or is it just a Europe thing? It depends on the job, Apollo, but yeah, generally you get 2 to 4 weeks. It really depends on the job. If you're doing grunt work, like working in a restaurant or something, it's usually 2 weeks. The idea is that you'll push for a better job, and you'll vacate like a service job so a kid could take it, a kid that doesn't need paid time off, and then you go and get a better job. It's the whole idea behind that, and why there's no law about it, is to get people to move around in the job market. Stir it up, you know what I mean? Some people like that, some people don't. Whatever. Let's keep going. According to Reddit, Americans don't get vacation. I don't get any paid time off, Soapbox. For what it's worth, I don't get PTO. I don't get sick leave. I don't get vacation. What is this vacation word you're using? I don't see it in the dictionary. Yeah, Spiffy, I'm with you on that one. EJ, real American. Yeah, I chose this job, Soap. That's the thing. And I like it. I like being accountable to myself. It's really nice, actually. But you get KSP. Yes. But you work for yourself, correct? You're not an employee at Twitch? I'm not employed by Twitch, no. I'm not Twitch proper. If I did, I would have Spiffy's name. I would have the wrench. But no. Guys, that doesn't bother me. You know, I like this. I like working. You know, screw me, right? Even if somehow we were able to figure out paid time off for streaming, I probably still wouldn't take that much time off. Because the way I look at it, and not everybody thinks this way, I get it. Not everybody think this way. Everybody wants to. I understand. You know, that time off is time wasted. I understand you need personal time and you need personal days, dude. I get that. You know, I understand. Like, there are some days where I come in here and I'm like, I hate everything. I'm leaving. Bye. You know, like, that happens. But, you know, that's just opportunity lost, dude. To me, at least. That's how, I mean, once again, that's personal experience. Not everybody is that way. I understand. I'm weird. I'm an exception to the rule, not the standard. For what it's worth, Twitch does give paid time off and sick leaves to its employees. I was kidding. Yeah. Yeah, Spiffy, from what I understand, because I've talked to like Pluto and Zach and stuff, just working for Twitch is really, really nice. From what I've come to surmise, right? I've been to HQ a couple of times, dude. Like, you get a job at Twitch, you're made in the shade, man. There's way worse, indeed, right? Indeed. You hiring? I'm just kidding. Spiffy, maybe we should go ask Emmett if Twitch needs like a science communicator for science. You know, science. Yeah, Audrey, we'll be gone. Isn't that you? Like a dedicated science channel. I volunteer as tribute. I jababos. You know, Spiffy. I mean, I figure I could hook that up because Twitch viewers dig dudes that have science. You don't really want that? Yeah, Deft, I'll admit I like being able to say whatever I want. I like being candid about spaceflight. That does make me happy. And I'm not sure I'd do that in the studio setting. I'm pretty sure Twitch had me there for Science Week one time in 2017, and they were like, yeah, you could just go back to doing your thing. Like, all right, guys. Think of all the deniers coming into Troll. Who cares? So, that doesn't matter. Deft, I'll be honest, if we were on an official Twitch channel doing space news, it would be much more regimented, and I would not be listening to chat, because it would be filled with... Not you guys, obviously. You really should prod NASA about being part of their outreach program. Who says I haven't, Pythos? Honestly, I have no idea. We're hiring a bunch of software engineers, so if you can write code... I can write Morse code. Does that help? Your boy is inept when it comes to software engineering. Yes, Everest. Morse code, best code. Yeah. Yeah. Let's make a programming language that's just Morse code. It's just dots and dashes. It'll be like binary, but better. Yeah, let's not. Serious is like, no. Yeah, right. How about we code in Braille? Can we do that? Hey, accessible code is important, okay? Your fiance can write code. That's a very good point. Code all the things. Nah, Spiffy, I'm not saying I can't learn software engineering. I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. It's just, it's like one of those things. It's like the hobby that they're like, man, I would really love to like learn how to play the guitar. I would, because I suck at it, but it's just I just don't have the time. Like software engineering is I don't have the time to do that. Like if I can do it, you can do it. Yeah, no, like it's just logic flow, dude. I get it. I don't know how to do it, but I get it. I mean, I know it's a little more complicated than that, but... Code in Navajo? That'd be a good idea. Learning software engineering is committing to a huge number of hours, for sure. Exactly, Rain. It's like... software is like aerospace. The thing about... So, like, okay, you can teach people a programming language, right? But teaching people a programming language is like teaching somebody English, all right? There's teaching somebody English... And then there's teaching someone how to write an essay. Right? That's how I look at code. Aerospace is the same way. You could teach people the physics behind it. But there's applications, all right? You have to write your essay. You know what I mean? And writing your essay is, well, engineering a component to a vehicle that you'd work on in the industry, right? Like an oil pump or a guidance system, et cetera, et cetera. It's a little more complicated than that. Writing the essay with aerospace engineering is just as difficult. Well, you would learn to code if you download KOS. I'd rather have KRPC because then you learn Python. You know, well, there's essays have certain structures to them, right? But what are you writing about? How long is your thesis statement? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's all about application. You know, it's the grammar behind the language, right? Like, that's so damn important. Maybe I'll do it one of these days. Who knows? All right, let's get back to this SLS article. The third constraint is that Orion must splash down in lighted conditions, which aids recovery operations. Artemis 1 will be the first re-entry from the moon, providing a high-priority test objective for the Orion program. Sorry for the bad word. Oh, nice. Yeah, Westy, it's application. You know, people say, hey, would a space shuttle with like 3 Falcon 9s attached to the side and an external tank coming off of its face, would that work? I don't know. What are you trying to do? Like, yeah, maybe, yes. Fresh peppers in space. Cool. I'll check that out in a second. For this uncrewed test flight, we're trying to have a lit landing. Re-entry jokes. It's not. So that governs where we have at least a half an hour before sunset, or we land at least an hour after sunrise. That drives some of the launch opportunities. The last constraint is essentially the allowable range between entry interface and the target splashdown zone. For a skip re-entry, we want to fly somewhere between 2,500 and 4,000 nautical miles, 4,600, 7,400 kilometer range from entry interface to splashdown. And we're nominally targeting about 2,800 nautical miles, so 5,100 kilometers. If we get shorter than that, it's going to exceed some of our test criteria. And if we get longer than that, again, it's out of the testing criteria as well as the vehicle design, meaning... Yeah, Catalan, I can do that. It's been proven to work. We could put one on the SSDO if we really want to. So performance eclipse, lighting for landing, and then range from entry to splashdown. There are 4 things that we screen against to determine whether or not we can launch on any given day. Cool, cool. The initial Block 1 configuration of SLS utilizes the ICPS, a modified Delta IV upper stage. The ICPS acts as an in-space second stage above the SLS's 5-segment rocket boosters and core stage. The SLS boosters in the core stage insert the ICPS with an Orion on top of it into a parking orbit that is unstable and highly elliptical, with a low end or perigee within Earth's atmosphere, but with a greater than usual high end or apogee. For Artemis 1, the SLS core will be targeting an insertion orbit of about 30 by 1,800 kilometers. Man. That's... Man. You know what's crazy about that, guys? So, if you speak Kerbal, 30 by 1800 like that, that's an extremely eccentric orbit. If you adjusted the ascent trajectory, right? The SLS core stage could put something into like a 400 kilometer circular orbit that's like double the mass of that, which is still bananas to me. That's ridiculous. Because that upper stage in that Orion capsule, the Orion capsule is 25,000 kilograms. The second stage, what, 50,000 kilograms? Something like that. And it's yeeting that into 1,800 by 30. You could throw this into a 400 circular and double the payload mass, easy. Which is bananas. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of scalability in the design. It's horribly inefficient for that, but that's another... yeah. How long is the decay for that? With a perigee of 30? 1 orbit. That's a once around. So the core stage pops off, which sucks, but... yeah, let's see. The ICPS does not have the capability to throw an Orion-massed vehicle to a lunar vicinity from a low Earth orbit circular parking orbit, so the SLS core stage assists the ICPS Orion stack with the insertion into an elliptical parking orbit. It's because this design is terrible. Terrible design. Anyway, sorry. I'm going to keep going. The apogee of that parking orbit is a dial that can be used to transfer performance from the core stage to the ICPS or vice versa. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's interesting that he mentioned it. Yeah, you could switch it back and forth. But yeah, the core stage has to put the insertion apogee at 1800, because even with a Delta 4 upper stage, which is one of the most efficient stages around, it's still it doesn't have enough for TLI, which is just... well, yeah, that's mostly why a reusable SLS would be very difficult. It literally comes back from orbit. Yeah, I mean, Novus, you know what we could do? Like, we'll take a little bit of a TWR hit, but we should take those, we should take one of the RS-25s off, and then, find a way to, do some smart reuse with it. So, how about we have, 3 RS-25s, right? But... it needs a heat shield on it, right? So you don't want to put it, directly under the core stage. How about we, put it on the side? And then give it, a reusable heat shield, like tiles or something. That would be a good idea. Just saying. No, but I mean, I don't think smart reuse with that is a good idea at all. You'd just be making a space shuttle again, right? That's the joke. SLS's core stage, which would be much better off in an application of, a wet workshop. So, basically put some orbiter maneuvering thrusters up in the LVSA and then an airlock, and there you go. Put a service module in the LVSA and then make the core stage into a wet workshop, like what they wanted to do with the ETs. That's a much better application. But see, even then, NASA, that'll anchor NASA in low Earth orbit again. Do we really want to do that? Skipping orbit, 30 by 1806 kilometer to skip. No. That's so you can go out to the moon. They're gonna skip with Orion coming back from TEI. That idea is go at throttle up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, getting those RS-25s back, you're going to need it. You're going to need a heat shield. Because the SLS flies on literally the exact same trajectory as the shuttle, minus the 1,800 kilometer apogee. The shuttle really only could go to a 400, 500, maybe 600. And that's only if you're carrying nothing in the payload bay. I think the highest mission with the shuttle went to 600 kilometers, which is pretty insane for the space shuttle. That's 600 kilometers for the space shuttle in terms of highest altitude would be like a 747 flying at 80,000 feet. That's some things might start going bad there if you're not careful. Isbik, I'm doing fine. How are you? What's the diameter for Delta Heavy? Delta uses a 5.4 meter core diameter, and then there's 3 boosters. So we're at 16.2 meters width. Push the entire core stage to orbit and make a wet workshop. Separate the engine and send it back inside of a Starship cargo bay. It won't. I don't think it'll fit. But that depends on how SpaceX wants to do their cargo bay. But yeah, a wet workshop application would be much better for this. Heck, freaking what I said. Take the SLS, right? And then get rid of all this crap. Put a hydrogen tank up top with a nuclear transfer stage, and then use the universal stage adapter, and then just put a nose cone on the front. literally another core stage with hydrogen stacked on top with a nuclear engine. I'm not entirely sure that that would be able to hold that. But it would be a good idea. Heck, you don't even need the hydrogen tank. A LOX tank would be just fine. LOX tank with a nuke, and then just put the stage adapter up here for the EUS, right? It's a good idea. I mean, that would work. That would work pretty well, actually. Nova, is there any difference between the LOX tank wall and the hydrogen tank wall? It should. I'm pretty sure that's using the same tooling, right? Or is it special? Like, is the hydrogen tank different, or did they standardize it? I actually don't know that question. I don't know the answer to that. Later, when we get the exploration upper stage with the Block 1B vehicle, we will not have that constraint to get to TLI. It's because we have to loft the trajectory with the ICPS to achieve the performance that we need to hit a specific point in space for TLI. I don't know off the top of your head. Yeah, no problem, dude. That's a really specific question. For future SLS launches using the EUS, Ian, I want to read what you said. I saw what you said, but I didn't get it. The currently in development stage will insert into a parking orbit at about 185. Okay. Ian, what did you say? They really killed themselves by not going EUS first. It's getting harder and harder to get the EUS to be a real thing, notably with the ML2 delays, and they keep delaying the EUS itself. The EUS has passed CDR, Ian, I thought. And ML2 is literally being built right now. Seriously. Yeah, they're gonna rope the rest of ML2 funding under EDS, and because it's an experimental, because that rocket hasn't been tested, right? And then they're gonna go from there. I thought that they're gonna they've gotten further on the EUS. Currently, the EUS is net Artemis 4, and that's getting questionable too. Ugh. You already have the LH2 tank on the core stage anyway. Yeah. Yeah, it's starting there. Maybe. The EUS passed CDR last December. Yeah, Kamer, you'd think that they would have started making prototypes for it at this point, guys. They would have started doing that. US has been developed, yeah, but ML2 hasn't been fully funded, and it's barely on schedule for Artemis 4 if they start full work right now. Well, they have started, Ian. There's... Yeah, here. There's this site called Space Explorer, dude, and I'm not 100% sure who this is. But they're the only ones that looks like a freaking skull. All right. That's great. I don't know who this is. I don't know these guys, but they had an article a little while ago. There's Orbital Reef. Yeah. They did some major shifts with ML2 stuff the other day. Oh, it's Jared Locke. Never mind. I know this guy. I've never met him, but I know who this is. I know of this person. Yeah. Yeah, check this out. They're going to start manufacturing this sucker. I mean, Ian, it should still... this thing should be... Like, I guess you don't really need it for Artemis 3 if you have Lunar Starship, but... I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you that they the EUS should have been made from the start. This whole idea of using a different upper stage to save money or some horse crap was just terrible. Terrible, 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 terrible. That was a terrible idea. It's just horrid. Like, what are you doing? They're doing weld confidence SDA stuff for the EUS already. Yep. They're going to start EUS manufacturing this year. Yep. I think we'll see it faster than you think, dude. Artemis 4 is allocated to carry the IHAB module to the gateway, so it needs Block 1B. Yeah. Oh, that's a deadline to get. That's a deadline to structure it around. So if they're scaling, they're probably going to scale to Artemis 4. What if it works out that we never get the EUS, but instead we get a nuclear upper stage? I mean, the EUS is a pathway to nuclear upper stage signer. Nuclear upper stage is signer. So, if we didn't develop the EUS and went straight to a nuclear stage, so like we're going to develop the EUS and the EUS could work, and then eventually SLS might sometime in the future. And don't get me wrong, this is what NASA wants to do. That doesn't mean that is what they're going to do. That could pave the way to nuclear transfer stages, because eventually you're going to need it to throw some kind of crazy transfer stage into orbit if NASA's serious about going to Mars. It's simple as that. Then tack on another 4 years for development. Bingo. The EUS is a way to justify the engineering to make an 8.4 diameter upper stage. And then SLS could fly with nuclear transfer stages. And then if they make the cargo variant, then Constellation is back on. The funny part of that is that they're still going to need to find a way to get Orion into low Earth orbit if they're building transfer vehicles with unmanned SLSs. You're going to find another way to move Orion into space. See, how NASA likes to work is they like to... The ways that have proven to work in the past is when you start small and then you work your way up. Think about it, right? So what did NASA do? NASA started with Mercury Redstone, right? And then they switched to Titan, right? And while they had Titan going, they got Saturn 1 going, right? And then the technology from Saturn 1 and the Gemini program found their way into Apollo. They didn't just build a Saturn V right off the bat. That would have been ridiculously complicated. Part of the reason that NASA got this done so quickly is because they were operating the Apollo and the Gemini program basically at the same time for a number of years. There was a huge overlap, and that culminated with funding peaking in 1966, right? And then it started to go down because the Gemini program stopped, and then they canned the Artemis program too after that, which was... Or not Artemis, they canned the Apollo program after that too, but I digress. So, like, you fast forward to, like, Constellation. Constellation was supposed to make Ares 1. And Ares 1 was supposed to test the 5-segment boosters and then be basically propulsion testing, in-flight propulsion testing for the J2X, right? And those type of technologies, roping that into Ares 1 development, right? Everybody always criticizes Ares 1 for having a huge price tag. Well, that's because it has development costs tacked on to it for J2X propulsion and for the 5-segment SRBs. The thing about that is, just like with the Apollo program, nobody ever said the Gemini program was too expensive because the Apollo, they needed to figure out how to do stuff that paved the way to Apollo, right? Ares 1 test that 5-segment booster and that J2X, so when they went to make Ares 5, you already have the boosters figured out and you already have your upper stage propulsion figured out. Now, it's funny because with SLS, right, when they switched it to SLS, you get rid of Ares 1. You get rid of Ares 1, you have no upper stage for your heavy lift launch vehicle. There's our current predicament. That's what I mean. That's what I mean by saying it was a terrible idea. That was a really stupid thing to do. Joji, 44-month resub. You see what I'm talking about? You kind of develop a small vehicle and have that technology branch into a larger vehicle. SpaceX did it. SpaceX did it. Falcon 1 led to Falcon 9. What they learned with Falcon 9 led to Starship, right? It worked for them. You always have to have what's called a pathway for your engineering. That's really important to understand. But it is what it is. Coffee and cough drops. But yeah, I mean, Ian, I agree. They have to pull their head out of their tail. But see, like, once again, Ian, did you see the RFI for privatizing SLS operations? Basically making United Space Alliance for SLS. Did you see that? I'm wondering. I mean, that RFI basically has the roadmap for what they want to do with SLS. And now, once again, keep in mind, what NASA wants to do isn't what NASA ends up doing sometimes. You know, NASA wanted to keep using the Apollo program, but that didn't work. You know, NASA wanted to keep doing the Constellation program, and frankly, so did Congress, which is hilarious to me, but that didn't happen either, you know? Like, all right, Everest, see you, buddy. So, either way. Yeah, Vanguard, I know. Well, you know what's funny? The funny thing is that... Okay, Everest. The funny thing is, Vanguard, is that, you know, I say it once, I'll say it again. NASA needs a politician running it. Like this guy. And believe it or not, like Bill. Bill might not be the best in press interviews because he's a Florida man, right? And he's a little bit on the older side, but you know what, man? I don't care. The guy can suck at doing press interviews. And he pretty much does. But he's disgustingly good at the Rule 8 stuff with NASA. I mean, dude, him splitting HEOMD into EDS and HEOMD, him splitting human exploration operations and having a dedicated manned spaceflight NASA R&D directorate is genius. That's what they did. That's what they were doing during Constellation. And, you know, a lot of people dump on Ares 1. A lot of people dump on Ares 1X for being like, oh, that's not a real rocket. It's got a dud upper stage. It's got a dud. It's only a 4-segment SRB. It's just a dud version of a real Ares 1. The idea was that NASA wanted to do rapid testing under exploration development, right? That allowed them to basically... Having it set up like that allowed them to basically use an old shuttle mobile launcher, hotwire it, and then launch a test flight for Ares 1 to do aerodynamic validation. And tumble motor and vernier guidance and stuff. Like, that wasn't a bad way to do it. The Ares 1X test in 2009 would have paved the way to the Ares 1Y test in 2011 with a real upper stage, and they would have just kept doing iterations, and then Ares 1 would have been flying people by 2015. And, you know, it was, it would have been flying with 2015, sure. Okay, even if you have the worst budget projection for that, the worst budget projection for that Ares 1 flies in 2016, 2017 at best. Like, that's like with super delays, you know? They were already testing the J2X. They were already doing hot fire testing of it, you know, like. All right, Novus. Got to head out. Have a good stream. All right, man. Good talking to you. Like SLS kind of delays. Well, it came here, it wouldn't have happened like that. Part of, you know, everybody says, oh, SLS takes so long. SLS takes so long because they basically destroyed NASA's in-house R&D design. That's something that I recently learned. There was a press conference a couple of months back where they split HEOMD and EDS, and everybody says it was a stupid idea. And I thought it was a stupid idea at first, too. And then I read into it, and I looked into it, and I changed my mind pretty damn quick. That's how NASA was during Constellation. This is the type of architecture they had set up during Constellation, and Constellation actually got stuff done. Constellation wasn't behind schedule until they underfunded it. Then it was behind schedule. Turns out if underfunding a project doesn't matter how you set it up. Ares 5 was 5-segment booster as well. 2008 was a bad year all around, though. That had to play into things. Signer, if we're going to talk about that for a second, ain't nobody going to convince me that the solution to a recession where people are losing their jobs is to lay off a bunch of people. Yeah, ain't nobody going to convince me that that's the right move. You don't lay off people in the middle of a recession. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, what are you doing? Ares 1X had a 4-segment shuttle SRB. That's right. They had a dud 5th segment. That's correct, Gamer. But Ares 1 was supposed to have 5 segments. It was supposed to be a test article. It was supposed to be Ares 1 was supposed to test the components for Ares 5. The boosters, namely, right? And the J2X. And then when they cut that, they made it so you don't now you don't build a bunch of Ares 1s, and you need to still make 5-segment boosters down the road. So what do? You off all that to ground systems development. And then they got rid of exploration systems development too. So they basically, when SLS came along in the JTM Journey to Mars, they basically just completely shook up NASA and ruined it. Like, it was a terrible idea. The one good thing is that they kind of championed commercial stuff, but commercial stuff was coming anyway. They didn't really champion it so much as they didn't axe it. Yeah, that's an important thing for people to understand. It's an important thing to note, but once again, we'll keep going. But long story short, I agree with what Ian was saying before. SLS needs that EUS. If the SLS if they don't get that exploration upper stage, then even I'll go on record saying that's a piece of junk. Like, don't get me wrong, like the Block 1 version isn't bad, but it's you have some serious constraints here because you literally put like having the ICPS on top of SLS is like having a Falcon 9 with an Electron upper stage and fairing on top of it. Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do this? You're completely ruining the performance of the vehicle. Yeah, well, Mile. The funny thing is, Mile, is that Congress was on board. Congress knew that. You go and read about this stuff, dude. Congress was on board. Congress wanted to keep the Constellation program going so they could keep people in their congressional districts employed. I mean, politicians actually doing their job for a change? Please tell me more. But executive branch didn't want to do that. They wanted to get away from Bush era policies, dude. Oh, Congress was pissed. And they didn't say anything either. They didn't tell them they were going to get rid of it. They just went and did it, and Congress was like, what? You did what? No, hell no. What are you doing? No. Go read about it. Dude, there was a unanimous consent, like, in Congress to keep the Constellation program going. Oh, yeah. I mean, they underfunded it a couple of times, but that's another story. Curiosity question. Would it be possible to have a solid rocket engine that you could refuel like loading powder in a battleship turret? I mean... yeah, Shady. What would be the benefit of that? Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course you could do that. I mean, a 16-inch gun on an Iowa says that you could pretty much do that. You pretty much make that happen. I mean, Shady, that's basically what they do. They take...
Discovery,
so
go at throttle up.
SLS's boosters, right, are casings. There are 5 segments, right? And the segments are about, I don't know, maybe like 5 meters long. Maybe 10, right? You have a 3.7 meter casing, right? That's about 10 meters long. That's probably not right. It's probably 8. And you stack them on top of each other. And then when, say like during the shuttle, they would launch it, and the shuttle boosters fall in the water. They take the boosters back, they tow them back, and they disassemble all the casings, they put it back in the train, and they send the train back to Utah. And basically what they do in there is what you're talking about. Yeah. Remember, the shuttle's SRBs were reusable. They weren't really reusable. They were refurbishable because you have to pack the grain back in, and it's called grain. You know, I know grain and bullets means something completely different, but hey, Bith, what's going on? 41-month resub. Sounds like a rotating detonation engine to you. No. Send solid rocket charges to space for boosters. So now you need some type of reloading mechanism on orbit? Shady, okay, so once again, this is a context of application. So what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to do? Are we, you're, where your mind is going is using solid rocket fuel, like a solid rocket fuel depot on orbit to be able to quickly refuel SRBs, to use that to go out to the moon or wherever, right? Is that what we're talking about here? I mean, it's one way to prevent boil-off. Vacuum-optimized SRBs still aren't very good. Guys, SRBs are very energetic. They're not very efficient. But they can be vacuum-optimized with a nozzle. It's possible. How do they join the segments with boom stuff inside? Bolts? Yeah, I mean, well, Gamer, I know it's going to have terrible specific impulse. Shady, you want to do that with a cargo starship. So
Discovery, go at throttle.
A cargo starship to move SRV segments into space? I mean, okay, so at that point, why are we reusing casings? Why not just have a booster stage that's a SRB? Dude, they thought of that. Here, yeah, I'll show you. They thought about something similar to what you're talking about. It's not reusable, but the IUS, or inertial upper stage, was exactly what you're describing. It launched inside of the shuttle's payload bay. See? Josh, 17-month resub. 17 months is like almost as long as your mullet. Bring back the mullet! Oh, God, people will kill me. I was thinking of counters to boil-off. Well, that was their solution with the shuttle when they didn't want to do Centaur. When they didn't want to do Shuttle Centaur, they took the Shuttle Centaur's payload adapter and put an IUS on it. The IUS was originally for a Titan. Yeah, it was a Titan third stage. It's a three-stage solid rocket, booster for as an upper stage. It's called an IUS. It was invented by the Air Force. The IUS is two-stage. Or is it? Let me take a look. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I thought there was a three-stage variant, but maybe it was for a special mission or something, dude. But, yeah. I mean, JD, the IUS is basically what you're describing. I know it's not exactly what you're describing, but it's close. I mean, personally, I still think Shuttle Centaur was a good idea. Shuttle Centaur is the same thing, but with a Centaur stage. So, the Centaur stage basically shoots the payload off, right? Lets it go, and then it turns around, comes back. The shuttle will grab it with its arm, redock the thing like the Hubble, right? And they put it back in the payload bay and bring it back down. See, no on-orbit refueling is required here. You don't need to do that because you fuel it down here, right? See, that's five-head moves right there. But they deemed it as too dangerous because for some reason they were totally cool with having a huge solid rocket bomb inside of the payload bay, but not a hydrolock stage. Now, don't get me wrong. This is believe it or not, this huge solid rocket firecracker inside of the shuttle's payload bay is actually a little bit safer than the Shuttle Centaur, and that's the reason. I said for some stupid reason, but no, there's a good reason why. There's a good reason why they didn't do this. Hydrogen pooling in the payload bay could be a big problem because you got a lot of wires and stuff in there. there's a lot of wires, there's a lot of stuff that can burn. That's why they deemed it too risky. Or not too risky, too technically complicated with the budgets that they were working with post-Challenger. But that's another story. Think of the Delta IV hydrogen leaks put in the shuttle's payload bay. Oh, you aren't activating an engine inside of the shuttle's payload bay, Synerd. I still think Shuttle Centaur is a good idea, to be honest with you. It's still a good idea. The hydrogen pooling could have been solved. It's a Centaur stage. It could have been solved. Like, if we had used what they used on Centaur 3 on the Centaur that was on Centaur G, then it would have been fine. But then again, Centaur 3 didn't come till long after the shuttle program was the Shuttle Centaur program got canceled. No, I mean little leaks that are the reason for the frequent Delta IV scrubs. You don't really remember the shuttle program too much, dude. Shuttle launch is scrubbed all the time, dude. Oh, all the time for that same problem. And the Delta IV uses a lot of shuttle-derived stuff on it, which is hilarious to me. Cammy, what's that? Offshore. The ship Doug has departed from the Crew 3 booster landing zone and appears to be returning to Port Canaveral. Yep, okay. This may be a stupid question, but is there such thing as a hybrid SRB that has solid and liquid fuel? No. There is not a hybrid SRB that has solid and liquid fuel. There is hybrid SRBs, though. You can fire LOX into a combustion chamber for an SRB to get a more efficient reaction. Yeah, there's hybrids, sure, but it's not liquid fuel to liquid fuel because the solid rocket fuel is already your liquid fuel. They spray oxidizer in there. For instance, Virgin Galactic, the space plane that flies up into space with the feather and everything that Richard Branson flew on, right? And they violated a bunch of TFRs on it, which was funny. That has nitrous. It's a nitrous oxide injected SRB, which is really cool. It's a nitrous injected SRB inside of a carbon fiber SRB casing, which is really cool, within a blader nozzle. Really, really interesting stuff. Synerd, wouldn't that be crazy? Challenger's launch pressure was due to constant scrubs. Pythos, the entire shuttle program reeks of insufficient testing. The entire shuttle program. It reeks of it. They basically rushed the shuttle to launch. They said, hey, you need to meet this deadline, but we're going to give you... okay, so like, they said, hey, we need you to launch the shuttle in a year. And NASA goes, okay, I can launch the shuttle in a year if you give me $1 billion. And they said, ha, $1 billion? No, 500 million. Here you go. That was the entire shuttle program development, man. The entire thing. That's why the shuttle had all the problems that it had. Because NASA was trying to do less with less. Or do more with less. That's probably the better way to say it. They basically No Man's Sky the shuttle program, correct? So liquid oxidizer and solid fuel. Yeah. Did they ever do tests on it throughout? What do you mean, Hellfish? Throughout the program? No, Seacracken, I don't. Check Roscosmos' website. Yep. Yeah, Barak, that's right. They rushed the shuttles to launch, and then they didn't build the prototypes, and then they retired the older ones as they went, which is just, yeah, no, that was a big mistake. Airborne, hey, still here doing good things. Had a test in the federal government today. I passed. 4 weeks left of school, then it's winter semester. Nice. Hey, we came up with this new part. Let's try it on the next mission. What they were trying to do in the early parts of the shuttle program, Hellfish, is stabilize the system. Long story short, man, every flight up into Challenger, they were learning new things about the shuttle, and that's not a good thing. You do not want to be learning new things about your launch vehicle during operational missions. Some of the stuff that they learned was really good. Some of it was really bad. Yeah, like those O-rings. Good aerospace engineering, dude. You don't learn stuff during operational missions. You learn stuff during testing. That's how I know, right then and there, that the shuttle wasn't tested sufficiently. It wasn't. Elon, actually, in Tim Dodd's video, suggested that the problem with the shuttle program was that they should have made it fly by itself, like Buran. I mean, the Russians knew. The Russians did that, but maybe the Russians did that because they saw the shuttle and said, hell no, yeah, we're not doing that. You know? It's possible. But there was no way to really rapidly prototype the shuttle. I mean, the stupid part about that is that like 90% of the shuttle's operations were already automated. Ascent was entirely automated. It's not like they're flying the damn thing into space, right? Like, descent, most of EDL is automatic. The computers did it by itself. And then they had manual landing and then manual on-orbit operations because it's a construction crane. How are you going to do that automatically? I mean, don't get me wrong. Nowadays you could. Sure, absolutely. But we're talking in the 70s here, you know? In the end, they should have just put money towards improving the Saturn V. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, an upgraded Saturn V would have been fine. Like, don't get me wrong, reusability is really good, and it's a really good direction that we should have pursued. But also at the same time, I said this while we were playing Satisfactory. You can operate a robust space program. With expendable rockets. That's doable. A sustainable space program, not necessarily for the environment, can be done. Economies of scale will win. Doesn't matter if it's reusable or expendable. Economies of scale is more sustainable for a space program. I just wish the Air Force never got involved in the space shuttle. Then we wouldn't have gotten the gigantic wings. Yeah, but Synerd, if the Air Force didn't get involved, the space shuttle wouldn't have happened at all. So there's that. Wasn't a lot of it Rule 8 defensive posturing, though, keeping it crewed to not lose potential crewed spaceflight funding. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you gotta understand why the shuttle even came about in the first place. You know, and people are gonna say, you know, Nixon had no interest in spaceflight stuff. You know, he kept the Apollo program going through 68, 69, 70, 71. And then 72 rolled around, and he, this is too expensive. It's too expensive. It's, you know, we got to fix our problems down here. I have other stuff to deal with down here, etc., etc. Nixon basically did you got to find a cheaper way to do it because we got to fix stuff down here. He literally did why don't we just fix our problems down here argument, which is stupid. And because him and his cabinet was so kind of into that policy, they presented the shuttle to him. You know, we can, you know, solve all of our defense launches. You know, we can save money for the defense launches if we make one vehicle for everybody, right? That can do all the things, right? And it'll be reusable, so you will end up saving money. That was the only way they could keep NASA going, which really blows. Oh yeah, he also hated Kennedy. Yeah, he did not like him. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, Hell Hydra. He didn't like JFK. That's why the Charlestown Navy Yard in Boston got bracked in the 70s, like badly. Oh yeah. Yeah, in the 70s under Nixon, all the Navy contracts that were in Boston got completely obliterated. How funny of a coincidence is that? Because getting beaten 60 under what many called suspicious circumstances. Yeah. I mean, Hellfish, you know, you could say Kennedy this, Nixon that, blah, 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 blah. But honestly, at the end of the day, dude, I don't give a crap who it is. I really, really hate it when people play political football with NASA. I really don't like that. Every time that's happened, NASA ends up screwed. Shuttle program, canceling Constellation. So canceling Apollo and canceling Constellation. Boom. There you go. 2 huge examples. Every time that happens, every time someone decides to play political football with NASA, NASA gets the shaft hard. Every time. Yeah, Hellfish, you ain't wrong. But yeah, so anyway, let's finish up space news with the Starship video, and then we'll go. So this footage is coming from our buddies over at NASA Spaceflight, just like the Phil Sloss article with SLS. Boca Chica gal, Mary, is the one that shot this footage. Her and Nick and Sweeney, too. They're NASA Spaceflight's 2 dedicated photographers and documenters of starbase activities. Starbase and starbase activities, boy, I tell you what. So, yeah, be sure to go over there and support them and NASA Spaceflight if you can, guys. They basically allow me to sit here and analyze this stuff for hours every day, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart every time. So make sure you go over there and support them. You support them over here, it supports me inadvertently. At the very beginning, Jim, yes. Mm-hmm. What are we doing in KSP, by the way? Testing some things. Crane, dodge, truck, counterweight, truck, crane part, car. When's Crew 3? It's supposed to be this weekend, but it's probably going to get scrubbed, crane parts. I feel like NASA should be one of the few organizations that could be partially void of political stuff, mainly because of science. Politics weaves its way into everything. Look, Sav, here's the thing at the end of the day. You live and die by the sword. The same political forces that caused the shuttle program to happen and caused SLS to happen are the same political forces that gave us Constellation and gave us 6 landing sites on the moon. You live and die by the sword, man. You know, I try not to criticize, you know? Like, I try not to. It's really easy in hindsight to say that was a bonehead move, right? Like, that's really easy to see 50 years on when we still haven't gone back to the moon, right? They didn't know that. The shuttle was supposed to get us back to the moon in the 80s, you know? Just with a cheaper alternative, right? That was the idea. It seems like a good idea at the time, right? But those same political forces that got the Apollo program canceled are the same forces that made it happen. You know what I mean? Like, you live and die by the stupid sword, dude. Which, you know, like, that's how I look at it. So the best thing that I can do is to understand in the past how it's happened, how it's worked, like what were the circumstances that made the Apollo program happen. Understand those circumstances and analyze that and be able to apply it to what the direction that NASA's going today. This is what I do, right? And then look at all the times, look at good spaceflight policy and bad spaceflight policy and weigh them against each other and then compare that to nowadays. Like, what's NASA doing? Right now, NASA is really making a push to ramp up SLS. And that's a good idea. That is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Anyone that tells you it's a bad thing has no idea what they're talking about. You want to ramp up SLS. Because the sad truth of that is, you know, there's people that say, oh, SLS is too expensive. It's going to cost too much money. It's not like that money goes into SpaceX's pocket if SLS gets canceled. Anybody that tries to tell you that has demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of how funding works. If SLS got canned tomorrow, that funding would not, that Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate and EDS funding would be gone. It would go right back into the coffers. And it would be extraordinarily difficult to, A, give that money to SpaceX, even if that was an option, or B, keep that money under NASA's roof. It's exactly what happened when they canceled Constellation. When they canceled Constellation, all this money that was basically ready to go didn't go to the commercial partners. That's what everybody said. That was political nonsense. Everybody said, oh yeah, we're going to cancel Ares 1 and all that money's going to go into commercial crew. And then Congress said, nah, the hell you're doing that. And they said, no, that's a stupid idea. We should have a healthy national space program. And then they diverted that money to SLS, right? And then the executive branch says, oh, Congress, they're putting the money in to not where I wanted it to go, because and then you get your strife right there. They shifted the money here. No, they shifted the money there. Like, where does that stop? It's not, and just look at that whole mess. And it's funny because the people that were saying at the time, and I distinctly remember this because this is right when I really started reading about spaceflight. People at the time saying, oh, Constellation is too expensive. Constellation is too expensive. We need to replace it with something. This money needs to go somewhere else. They're the same exact people that are saying, it's the same stupid argument that they're saying with SLS now. Same stupid stuff, dude. History is repeating itself. Like, I'm watching it happen in real time. And that's why I always take a second to talk about the whole $30 billion thing, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous to say, like, oh, we should cancel SLS. Because the implication there is that SpaceX would get that money. That is not how that works. No way. Because that's what they tried to do before. They tried to cancel Constellation, get all the Ares 1 development money, and move it to commercial crew. And once again, live and die by the sword. Congress said, frick no, you're not doing that. And they shifted that money to SLS. And since SLS didn't have any concrete deadlines, that money just kind of... See what I mean? I'm telling you, man, I've been studying spaceflight policy over the last 10 years. The last 10 years of spaceflight policy, with the exception of like 2015 forward, is terrible. Literally the worst. It's the worst spaceflight policy. Like, at least the shuttle, they got it and it did something, right? Like, yeah, no, at least that's what happened. With this, like, we did, dude, 10 years down the road, relying on the Russian Soyuz for a decade? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You can't be serious right now. You can't be serious. I'm going to Johnny McEnroe this thing, man. It's ridiculous. Why don't they use the same argument for the military? I talk about spaceflight policy here, Tomas, not defense. Defense is a whole big can of worms that, if I tried to sit here and explain it, most likely people would end up getting really annoyed because they don't like how the system works or some other thing. And yeah, I'm not going to do that. Let's just watch the Starship video. You always go back to the shuttle. The shuttle is gone. Nisa, dude, nothing would make me happier than seeing the shuttle fly right now. But I understand why it's gone. I like the shuttle more as a meme. Like, I like it. It's a cool space vehicle. It's a vehicle I grew up with. Just like kids are growing up with Falcon 9 now. But once again, I think it's important to understand, why the shuttle existed, and the context in which the shuttle program got made, and the context in the environment that the shuttle program, either, depending on your judgment, either thrived or didn't in. It's important to understand this stuff, especially for the Americans that are watching the stream. Now don't get me wrong. It's not like the Europeans... It's not like I'm saying this, Europeans, it doesn't matter, right? It's important to understand the spaceflight policy here and understand the context why this stuff happens the way that it does. That helps me basically be a better STEM communicator with what NASA's doing, You can be knocked for always going back to the shuttle until we actually have the same capabilities. Yeah. You have to understand the context here. Context matters so much, and it's something that gets very, very overlooked nowadays. I see it with just the general discourse on on Twitter. I see it on Reddit, you know. And don't get me wrong, these people's opinion doesn't matter, right? But honestly, like, I see people peddling false information, and literally takes about the space program that have no bearing whatsoever. I'm trying to curb that. It's very important. It's important. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. It's important to have a robust national spaceflight program supplemented by really equal or lesser commercial capability. Particularly, hopefully equal with this. That would be great. And electrocuted, yeah, clickbait has ruined a lot of things. I refuse to do that crap. I will not do that. You won't get clickbait stuff from me unless I do it as a joke. Look at all the crane parts. So SpaceX basically bought one of these guys. It's the same thing. It's a Liebherr 11,000. See that? They're gonna build it basically right next to this thing. There's all the parts, and then there's the part of the crane right there. There's your main boom pivot right there. There's the derrick pivot right there, and then the mast pivot's down in there. That's correct, Taco. Well, Columbia was a disaster, and Columbia was a freak accident. So we basically used that as an excuse to rip the shuttle Band-Aid off. And that sucks that it had to be written in blood, but that's Columbia is the reason why we got Constellation the way that we did. Constellation was basically designed to pick up where the Apollo program left off, just like the Artemis program is. It all comes back to cranes. Cranes are the best, man. Without cranes, none of us would exist. Yep. There's a mast segment right there. Yeah, the 11-350 is gone, granted. Yep. There's a piece of it right there. It's this Fagioli crane over here. You can still see the mast for it. The Franken crane's over here. There's Liebherr counterweights right there. These are 10,000 kilo counterweights. So 10,000 kilograms, 10 metric tons, or 22,000 pounds. Henachiro cranes are sick. It's so cool. It's like playing with a big Lego Technic kit. Only it's a big Lego Technic kit that can move around like office buildings. Yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. I like that. The cranes are sick, man. I wanna still figure out a way to do this in KSP, just because. To make a crane like that. Yes, Tessa, it has the capability of doing it. Thomas actually figured that out yesterday. So if SpaceX buys enough Liebherr crane parts, they can make another Franken crane. You can make a power boom off of the 11,000. It's possible. I think the only reason they had the 11-350 there was to build the fixed service structure. For stacking Starship, I'm pretty sure you don't need that big of a crane. It doesn't need to be a power boom. But I could be wrong. I'm not a crane operator. You'd have to ask Goalie, to be honest with you. Looks like getting that jib tip out of the boom section might be a bit of a trick. Not really. Let me see. No, it's got roller wheels on the end. See? See the roller wheel? Right there? All you got to do is attach a crane to the back of this thing, pick it up, and then just pull backwards. These roller wheels... So, like, the inside of this... Inside of this right here has a... there's a walkway. There's a little walkway, and the roller wheels right there. See those things? They roll out. So you just grab the back of it and you just pull it out. It rolls like a wheelbarrow. There's square wheels, Entropy. Right. Yeah, see it? See them right there? Looks like a big wheelbarrow, dude. Boy, building the first crane ever must have sucked. Yeah. Yep, there's your pulleys right there. Yeah, granted. Yeah, Dude, like I said, Lieber is probably some of the coolest mechanical engineering you're going to see. Or just lattice cranes. I mean, Manitowoc is the American one. They build lattice cranes too, and they're just as cool. Been out of the loop lately. What have we been doing? Getting the SSTO ready, the big SSTO ready for operational flights. Dude, watch the suspension decompress on the trailer. Hold on. When they tension the wires, watch the suspension decompress. The bags. You ready? Look at the difference. Look at the trailer. Man, that thing is heavy. I just realized cranes bootstrap each other. Pretty much. Yeah. Smaller crane builds the bigger crane. Yeah. That... Yeah, Spiffy, that's right. They do. That's weird. I never thought about it like that. But yeah. Yeah, I guess it does, doesn't it? Well, that's weird. Damn, boy. You thick. Oh, yeah. You can also stack the crane segments this way. You could stack them like Legos. Yeah. You could stack them this way, or you can go that way. Meta crane. Mark Zuckerberg has entered the crane chat. Wait, what? You know what's nuts to me, dude? Check this out. If you look at this picture, you see that right there, and you see that right there? The RCS are straight up tank vents on Super Heavy. In Tim Dodd's interview with Elon, he talked about this. Because you have autogenous pressurization, right? All you got to do to repressurize the tanks is run the engines. Well, when you're doing a landing, you can depress the tanks a little bit. You don't want to go too much because then you won't have any ullage, right? But the RCS, so to speak, on this is just venting the main tank, which is... That's crazy, dude. Nobody's ever done that before. The closest thing to this would be when the external tank detached from the shuttle. They opened up the valves on the external tank, and the hydrogen gas and the oxygen gas shot out. And don't get me wrong, they wouldn't do this when the shuttle was near it. It would shoot out the two umbilicals that go into the shuttle when the shuttle wasn't attached, and the tank would flip end over end to get it to burn up correctly. That's the closest thing. Why hasn't it been done before? Because no one's ever tried to make rockets like this. I mean, look where the vent ports are. They're at 12, 3, 6, and 9, which is crazy, dude. So yeah, Soyuz boosters do that too. Yep. Mm-hmm. And the LOX vents have plates angled downwards to provide ullage thrust. So crazy, dude. Yep. They might have gotten the idea from the shuttle. Dude. I heard this from a guy who heard this from a guy, Hellfish. There's a viewer that lives in California that watches the stream that talked to a docent at the California Science Center where Endeavor is, right? And the docent was saying, and once again, I heard this from a guy who heard this from a guy. This is a viewer that watches the stream talking to one of the people that work at the museum with Endeavor, one of the space shuttles, right? The docent at the museum said that this was like a number of years ago. This was like maybe 2-3 years ago. This is pre-pandemic for sure. The docent said that one day, literally like a bunch of SpaceX engineers and designers like came in and they started asking questions about the shuttle, and they started peeping on how the tiles were set up, etc., etc., and they started picking the docents' brains about the space shuttle. So I'm willing to bet that SpaceX probably raided NASA's technical archives about the space shuttle to try, to try and like identify like where the shuttle faltered and what would be a better way. Like, okay, they did this and this ended up not working correctly, so like we want to do something similar, but we want to change it enough to overcome those problems. I guarantee you that that's what SpaceX did. At least when it comes to like the tiles and like tiles attached to movable control surfaces, right? You ever notice how Starship's flappy wings, how the tiles are set up, look exactly like how the shuttle's control surfaces are? It's the same thing. I'm pretty sure they raided NASA's technical archive for a lot of that stuff. And autogenous pressurization, the shuttle used that. The shuttle used that for 30 years. So, like, once again, that's just conjecture. I can't prove that happened. But a docent, this viewer I trust. A docent, I don't think the docent would make that up either. And that makes perfect sense. Like, why? That's not such a far-fetched thing to think. Like, Endeavor's right there. You might as well go check it. Starship does stand on the shoulders of the shuttle. It's going to vindicate it, Blue. Starship is the space shuttle. The shuttle is Starship's daddy, basically. Think of the shuttle like a DC-3 and Starship a 707. Now, don't get me wrong, a 707 and a DC-3 don't really have much in common. They were made by two different companies from two different time periods, but they share a common kinship. You know what I mean? NASA has all that testing on tiles and everything would be a good study. Absolutely, Ordon. Yep. Can you read my last, please? Haven't been around for a while. What's the progress with Starship? When are we expecting the launch? Sometime next year, early next year, hypersonic. It's really pending FAA approval at this point. SpaceX has said that they could get Starship basically ready to go in about a month. So, we're waiting on the FAA. Yeah, there you go, Crownless. It's like how we rated the X-33's technical archive to get our X-33 to fly like the real one. And it does fly like the real one. Which is pretty cool. It's like trying to reinvent it's trying to reinvent the wheel. Most things in real life are copied or reused designs. Yep, just slight elaborations. I've always... Makes sense, boss. We do research already done. Yep. The programmatic environmental assessment is the main problem now. The PEA is just fine. The PEA is a modification of SpaceX's original draft environmental assessment. So they had the DEA, and now they have the PEA. The PEA is the addendum to it. It's the modification. If the PEA goes through, then we're good to go. But right now the FAA is reviewing all their information and making sure that the environmental impact assessment was sufficient enough, and then they got to go over public comments too. That's going to take some time. And it's not like the FAA is like lollygagging on this. I bet you that there's probably a lot of stuff to consider. So I bet you they're working hard. I'm pretty sure they are. Watch the trailer. The trailer will go when they take the counterweights off. That's 22,000 pounds per counterweight. And there's two of them. And then they stack on each other like Legos. Look. They're just big Legos. What are they, depleted uranium? It's probably cast iron, Train Man. Cast iron would be dense enough. Can you imagine the forge that makes that damn thing? Well, the cast. Trog, I would not be working at this without a steel-toed boot. There's no way. There's so much stuff you could drop on your feet. I wouldn't go to any work site without a steel-toed boot, to be honest with you. I think that the FAA is dragging their feet because the FAA are thinking SpaceX is going too fast, but I could be very wrong also. I don't think that's what's going on, Dama. There's a lot of stuff to take into account. The FAA is going as fast as they can. I'm pretty damn sure of that. How about lead? Why would you make it out of lead when cast iron will do? Cast iron's cheaper as well. We still don't know what these damn stairs are going to do. They started building these sub-segments of stairs, and I think they're going to go in the high bay, or the wide bay or whatever, but I'm not sure what these things are going to do. Yeah, Pythos, yeah. Hey, they just wanted some cool stairs, man. All right, that's fair. Where do these stairs go? They go up. Maybe, Tessa. Didn't they move some to the launch site? I think so, Game Coder. It was either that or the build site. Ooh, what is this? Starship aft flap aero covers. Hello. Hello. Build site. Yeah, that's what I thought, Thomas. The FIA is like, slow down. Screw them, kicks you in the face with their energy legs. Power thirst, energy. You like strawberry? What about raw berry? Good meme. My favorite flavor is gun! Oh, boy. You'll be running as fast as Kenyans, and you'll be going to Kenya. Yeah, I agree. It's starting to look real good, Forge, yep. Look at this dude. Yep. It's like when you buy car parts and they don't exactly fit correctly, you gotta sometimes persuade it a little bit. Welcome to working with metal. See that guy on the left? He's persuading. He's persuading the metal to be in alignment. Actually, or he could be hitting one of the bolts in too. Forlorn, I understand what you're saying, but not so much. It's not like this is not the use we approve. Stop launching until you get approval. They approved the launch of SN 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, and 17. It's not like that's what's going on. That's actually, in fact, all of SpaceX's when-hop testing is a very good indicator of how the FAA really does look at it. The FAA is okay with doing rapid prototyping, right? But, you know, we got to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, which is why I don't think it's some crazy, ridiculous thing. The FAA is holding SpaceX back, blah, blah, blah. No. You got to get your paperwork in line. And I'm not saying that SpaceX doesn't have their paperwork in line either. I mean, I'm pretty sure SpaceX wouldn't go forward with all this if they weren't sure that the programmatic assessment was correct. Like, everybody says, oh, they built... Oh... I hate it. I hate everything about this picture. I hate everything. What do you think of the Pats so far? 4-4? Zizep, I think we're gonna win a lot more games. We started to see them come together, dude. They'll be fine. Oh. It's a fluid impeller, Tessa. Wouldn't be good on the truck. You could use it as a fuel pump, but I think it delivers a little too much fuel for the truck. It's just taking a nap. All right. Dot the lowercase j's. Good reference. They literally threw that engine in the trash. It's just a couple $1 million worth of hardware right there. Yeah, it's fine. There's the thermal blankets that are behind the tiles. You see those triangles are where they attach the tiles. That's the mechanical adhesion. They're using mechanical adhesion instead of gluing them. So since I just joined, thoughts on the new Glenn Pathfinder outside the factory? Pretty cool, man. Starting to see them do work. Raptor retirement home. So a dumpster. Got it. China wants to see that Raptor. Yeah. Cars. Truck. Junk. Stairs. Truck. Dodge. Bumpy road. Man, that road's gotten messed up from all the trucks on it, dude. See all, like, I get it, it's heat distortion to an extent, but see all the ruts in the road? See how bumpy that road? That's from trucks. Trucks do that to roads. They put grooves in it and they put bumps in it from, like, where the truck stops and where it goes and when it stops and when it goes.